One of the hardest things to do is to be honest about your healing journey. We often want to get to the end, right? To being at the point of wholeness and have it where the narcissistic abuse cycle has not controlled your life and everything that you've been just came out of. However, you've got to be able to be honest with yourself. And the lack of honesty about what it is you just came out of, the severity of that relationship, and where you are now can keep you stuck. Going through the narcissistic abuse cycle is very painful. It was a challenging cycle, and so it's going to be challenging trying to come out of it. What happens is with a lot of victims of narcissistic abuse is that they often become disillusioned about the healing. And so instead of being honest with themselves about the love addiction that they are possessing, in their heads, they think, okay, I got to figure out a way where it's the least painful way as possible and bring myself out of the cycle, and then I can just move on with my life. No matter which way, which direction you decide to take, what street you decide to drive down, there's no street that's going to be pain free. And so what happens is there are a lot of people in this world who are displaying empathy and compassion and grace towards individuals who have gone through this cycle, right? And at the same time, if you've been a person that's been a victim of this narcissistic system, you have to be able to match the effort from these individuals and being honest with them. Look at the story of Adam and Eve, and they're in the Garden of Eden, and then they both were partake of the fruit off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Due to unchecked cravings, right? And unchecked cravings lead to lust, and this lust leads to this addiction. And to thinking Eve thought that three things were going to be possible, right? And she thought these three things were going to be possible because of what? The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life, right? Which was the wisdom. And so she looked at the fruit. She saw it was good for food. It was aesthetically pleasing to the eyesight, right? And it was going to make her wise. And that's the same thing when it comes to narcissistic men. They look good for food / a provider, right? Aesthetically pleasing to the eyesight, and they look like they're one to make one wise and like they have a lot of wisdom. You go from being vulnerable to entering the land of shame and guilt and secrecy, right? And them trying to figure out a way to cover themselves up. And then God says to Adam, where are you? And it wasn't that he didn't know where Adam was, but Adam was being dishonest with himself about where he was. They could no longer access God in the same manner. Going back to that verse, can two walk together except they be agreed? When you think about these individuals who are supporting you, them giving you access according to what it is, the location you're telling them you're at, right? Back to Adam, the where are you? So if you're saying, I am ready to get out of this relationship, I'm done with it, I am ready to move on, they're going to give you access to that part of themselves that's going to then further you getting out of it. But if you're at the point where you're not ready to leave out of it, you're still in such addictive cycle, and that's still a very much so a stronghold, and you're at the point where you just need constant prayer for deliverance and breakthrough in that area, it's two different things from being in that particular situation where the trauma bonding and the soul ties have you all locked up and trapped in your body and nervous system. And it's the same difference if someone says, okay, where are you? As God asked Adam. And you as the person, the woman who's been in this narcissistic abuse cycle says 57th and Stony Island, and I'm heading in the direction of the lakefront. Then the person that's talking to you on the phone say, are you sure that's where you're at? Yes, I'm on 57th and Stony Island. I'm heading in the direction of the lakefront. They said, why I sound like I hear music and a whole lot of people in the background? That sounds like some of the area that you used to hang around, that you said that you shouldn't be hanging around that area because that area is not good for you. You sound like you are like on 59th and Ashland. And they're talking to you. They're telling you one thing, but the noise in the background, their whole persona and countenance, and their whole conversation style and tone on the phone is telling you, literally physically on 59th and Ashland. So I said, well, how are things going? You know, did you go to therapy? Did you try to see a coach? Yeah. The therapist couldn't help me and the coach couldn't help me. They're not doing any good. They can't help me. They're not doing anything good. What's not told oftentimes is I am not ready to go to the next level. I'm not ready for that access. I've told them that I'm ready, but I'm not physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? Physiologically ready to take the next step to come out of it and end this relationship, to release myself from it. That's where the honesty comes in. And people are not going to judge you for that. What happens is there's going to be such a disconnect from what you're telling them that you're ready to do and where you are at that present moment, which is why God asked Adam, where are you? He wanted to see if Adam was going to be honest about where he was after the narcissistic abuse cycle. He wanted to see if he was going to tell the truth about that cycle they had just experienced with the devil himself, who was the first narcissist, right? And he wanted to see, okay, does Adam know where he's at? Are we on the same page so I can support him? He put the responsibility on God and said, what the woman that you gave me,